Hello, long time no see. So basically, I'm kind of like in the middle of studying. I have the next summer test, this afternoon, this evening. Also, it's 7 p.m. Like that is between afternoon and evening in my mind. So I decided to take a little break because things have been kind of like piling up. I think this past few days, this past week or so, it has been pretty bad for my mental health. I've been really struggling, and I don't really. Uh, I know I feel like getting a lot of stuff out of my system would be helpful because like things are just feeling very overwhelming. I've been getting tired very quickly, like both physically and mentally. And my parents think that I might have to do college, because I decided to take all 5 subjects, like this semester. And when I've been taking like one or two for the past few years, but I'm gonna conclude it, and I'm happy with my performance. I'm happy that I'm learning. I'm happy that I found major that I'm like enjoying. But it's kind of I don't know. Let's wait and see. But that's been kind of like how I've been feeling. I've been kind of like distracting myself a little bit with, the World Cup. Like really enjoy. Also, like it's great that we live in a time where you don't have to pay for a subscription, for cable for you to be able to watch the games. At least here, we have, like a kind of like a channel on YouTube that is basically showing everything. So I'm really so it's been pretty good. I'm not paying 100% attention because there are things that I have to do, but it is kind of like in the background. And also like this is the biggest World Cup that like we ever had, 48 countries. So basically that is. Like there's going to be more matches, more games, so like that's exciting. And like we're still kind of like going about like the first round. Like whatever, like let me just talk about the things in my mind, because that is pretty much what I'm here for. Because also this morning I had to wake up early, so I want to take a nap right now before I continue studying. What I wanted to talk about is something that's been on my mind. Is like I'm kind of like tired of being myself, and with the same conversation there is the question of like, do I want to conform, because I'm not happy with what I have right now, but like what exactly would I want, like what are the other options. And in some ways conforming is kind of easier. It doesn't really work well for your brain. It kind of like leads you to be kind of like unhappy. But like there's like a lot of issues that it seems that they will be fixed if you conform, if you kind of like end up playing the game as people want you to play it instead of like how you want to play it. And yeah, so the whole thing of like me being kind of like tired, I don't know if it is me being tired of like being myself, or I'm tired of my life, because like those seem to be the same thing, but like they're kind of different. Like I think if I say that I'm tired of being me, it means that I could be somebody else, in a different context. While if I feel like if I'm tired of my life, I could still enjoy being myself, but I'd rather be myself in like a different set of circumstances. I don't know. I think I've been thinking a lot about what I want, particularly because, as I said, like this past few days, this past week or so, it's been kind of like bad for my mental health. I've been feeling kind of I've been feeling all over the place. Some days I'm okay, and then at others, I'm kind of like struggling to kind of like find the motivation to keep existing. And there's no right or wrong answer. I personally think a lot of people will tell you that like there is a specific reason why we all came to be, and if that is what works for you, like you do you. But for me, what makes no sense is that there isn't. And that is also something that kind of like comforts me a bit, because kind of like the idea of having like a purpose set in stone, it doesn't really appeal to me. I mean, it can be comfortable for you to kind of like first you keep existing, if you have like some guidance. But I think I work better when I don't have like this strict situations that they kind of like end up being kind of like attached to. I prefer to kind of like just figure it out one day at a time. And naturally, like we need to do a little planning. So I'm not just like aimlessly kind of like going about my life. Like no, I have like I have I don't know, like I think I guess like what is my purpose, for example. And the thing is that it can be whatever you want. As I said, I prefer to have it like be this open-ended thing, but basically, there's I like to for like every day to have a different goal, and naturally like you can have different goals while still having the same purpose. But for example, some days like I feel like my purpose is my writing, so like I'll focus on my writing. I will kind of like work on what I have going on, and then others it just feels like it's food, for example, which I know is not really kind of like a reason to kind of like exist, but it works for me. It has been working for the longest time, and it's kind of like a crush that I have. I don't want to consider food to be kind of like an anchor of mine, although like it does operate a lot like that. But still, you get what I mean. Like every day, I kind of like take a look at myself and I realize, like what's working, what's not working. And I mean, there is also kind of like the risk of you just kind of like being aimless for some days, and that does happen. To me, there are days where I don't really have anything that's kind of like attaching myself to this life, to this world, and that kind of like I end up being kind of like drifting away, like just flying like an empty, like a plastic bag. It always reminds me of that Katy Perry song. Do you ever feel like a plastic bag? And it's interesting because I feel like when I first, like heard that song, first listened to it, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, did I understand it already? And I don't really have a concrete answer. Maybe, if I start thinking about this, I will come to kind of like a conclusion. But definitely, like later on, because I think I was like 12 when this song came out. So like did I understand it? But I do know that by the time I was 17, like I already had those feelings, like I already had some depressive episodes, like during those years, like my late teenage years. And it is interesting because I am very I don't know. I think that I used to have a posture of like I wanted to have like certainty. So basically, like in my head, like there was no room for, for inconsistencies, for uncertainty. And I kind of, like something that ended up happening, to me is that I ended up suppressing a lot of, like the questions and the issues I had. So I was living my life, kind of like it was one day, it wasn't so much one day at a time, because basically I felt like I had this big enormous purpose, like this thing that I wanted to do, and that is all that matters. So I have sacrificed my health, physical and mental, and it's tempting for me to just be like right now, like, okay, what did I do that for? Because like nothing really came from it. It was just like a delusion that I fed for many years, for like a whole decade, in this specific case. But I have had other delusions that I've also fed for long periods of time, and there isn't really a there like there's, because the thing is, like, I could argue that there were kind of guidelines at that point in time for me, but I didn't want to kind of like conform to them, because I wanted to try to do things my way. So in a certain way, like, I'm kind of like proud of myself that I was able to stand my ground, even though like nothing came of it. So it was just like this decade of effort and time and energy spent, and nothing came of it. And I'm not even being hyperbolic, like literally nothing came of it. Everything that has happened since has been different from what I had planned. And yeah, my trusty water bottle. So yeah, so maybe I'm just like grasping at straws, trying to find something positive to kind of relating to like those experiences. But I don't really have I don't know, but that's kind of like what I have, being proud of myself for standing my ground. Like that's the type of thing that like sounds positive, like on the outside, but like the more you dig deeper, you're kind of like, okay, this thing of like standing your ground when you're wrong, or when it's harming you, like that is not great. You should kind of do better. But it's kind of hard when you're in the middle of it for you to kind of like observe whether like things are, because sometimes like it takes time for things to conclude, for things to get to a point where you can like see completion in that cycle, in that kind of like arc of your life. But like you're supposed to kind of like see some progress throughout it. It doesn't have to be the final product right away, but like something should come out of it. And as I said, like I was kind of like stuck on that loop for a decade, and I didn't really have like any progress. Although I will say that I say a decade, it was from like 11 to 21. And the thing that I think is, oh sorry, that is important for you to take into account is that the majority of that time I was basically in school, so I could kind of like fool myself into thinking that I was making progress because I had those situations, I had those experiences, like I was doing things in school. I had my extracurricular activities. I had my main thing. I was like in high school. Even my high school was also like technical school, so I was kind of like working on myself, working on my skills. So I kind of like fooled myself for like a long time that but at the same time, like, what further progress could I expect of like 16-year-old me? The type of thing that happens in your adult life. And it's interesting because like at that point, 18, 19, 20, and then I just turned 21, so it was like 3 years. And it is interesting because nothing happened in those 3 years. Naturally, I have to kind of like address the fact that like my expectations were very unrealistic. So like naturally, like it didn't, certain things didn't come to fruition. But like more could have happened. Like I could have adjusted my expectations and like my the way how I acted, the way that I behaved around, like the circumstances that I was trusting to, like the circumstances that I was born into, like they would never really facilitate me getting to the point I wanted to be. And I didn't want to accept that when I was younger. I was like, nah, I can overcome anything and everything if I put my mind to it. And that is just not how things work in real life. I do know that a lot of people have this type of naive, kind of like view of the world. But and like for me, I needed that to be true, because there were so many things piling up against me, against not necessarily me exactly, but like like the goals that I had, that I needed to believe that that was true. And I did. I fully believed that there was kind of like something there. And also, like, it is interesting because looking at the past right now, I'm like how this intersects with religion in my life, because for the longest time I really attached myself to the notion, because that's pretty much what would happen, because that's what God wanted to happen. At no point did I ever like, this is something that people ask you, like, have experience with God. And I never had. I grew up in a very Christian household, and still, like, I never had like those experiences that people talk about. And a part of me was very jealous because I was like, I want to have an experience as well. So I kind of like I filled my head with other things, and basically I came to a point where I was like looking at what I wanted, and I was like, that's kind of like, that's what God wants for me, like, but it was not. There's no God also. So, but that's not the point. The point is that I think that once I broke free from like those delusions, it kind of like really recontextualized, like my standing, like where I stood, as far as like religion goes, because that was the one thing that was like the thread that I was, attached myself to. That was pretty much everything was like depending on like this one thread. So without it, then I'm like, what do I really think? What do I really believe? And at first I didn't really name like kind of like I didn't name whatever it is that I believed in or didn't believe in, but it was just kind of like me kind of like moving away from the church, which makes sense. Like I had a lot of like trauma from like my upbringing, because as I said, like was religious and all that. Don't get me wrong, like I had a pretty happy and healthy childhood, but there were like some things that really impacted the way that I saw myself and I saw the world and how I interacted with the world, and for the worse. It's kind of like it's always like an interesting thing to kind of like see how kind of like the same situation can transform people, can lead to people having very adverse, very different kind of like reactionary responses. And once again, like there's no, as long as you're not hurting anyone else or yourself, I don't think there's anything wrong with like there's nothing wrong with kind of like believing whatever it is, because ultimately like getting through the day is hard. So however you find yourself, however like you find peace, like stick to that. as I said, as long as you're not harming other people or yourself. This is kind of like a new, like or yourself, because I think when I was younger, I was very much of the belief that like, okay, you can do whatever. I think that the thing that really changed my perspective was actually kind of like the thought of like, okay, so you just let people live in whatever they want. But then I was thinking about kind of like an amputation, not one that you need, but one that you do. Like, for example, one day you wake up and you realize like, oh, I don't want my feet anymore. So that is the type of thing that I was like, and maybe we shouldn't let people do that. I think we've lived in this very because we live in society and basically it means that there are some things that are binding us to each other, and there is something to be said about like what you can do, what you can't do. And there is, maybe you could say, like there's a kind of like a responsibility with like that we have like towards like other people in our lives. And there's no right or wrong way. I mean, actually, that's the thing. Like, there are no right ways, but there are some wrong ways. So you have to be kind of like, but yeah, but like that was the thing that made me kind of like reflect that maybe we shouldn't, people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their bodies, with their money, and all that. We can have opinions as far as to kind of like what they should do or what they shouldn't do, but ultimately it's up to them. But then, as I said, I was this thing of it kind of like made me reconsider some things. But it's kind of hard because sometimes people, they classify things differently, so they might kind of like so for example, I'm giving the example of like this unnecessary possible amputations. I never really seen anybody do this, so it's not really kind of like a thing. But it did occur to me, this thought, that I was like, okay, maybe we should do something. Maybe we should prevent something. But at the same time, like, it clashes with my notion that like laissez-faire, like live and let live. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't have like verdict is still out there, but yeah, because like the moment. Because as I said, like, it is a slippery slope. So on one hand, I feel like we should prevent people, but like I don't think we we should, like, not because we don't want people to kind of like harm themselves or others, but also, but the moment that you start kind of like making exceptions, it's a complicated topic. And thankfully, like, this particular example has never really happened, so it's kind of it is what it is. But yeah, but back to the whole thing of like me being tired of like my life. I don't know, I feel like today I'm okay with myself, so I'm not really regretting being me. But I feel like my circumstances, I don't know, so that there are some things that like I struggle with. For example, I really yeah, like for example, I've been struggling a little bit to write my novel lately, and that is a feeling that makes me, I'm very frustrated by that, but also I'm a little frustrated at myself, because I'm kind of like like I have the time, because up to like last week I was really like I was buried in assignments and like other things to do for school. And then, for example, this week I still have stuff to do, but like it is much lighter, and yet I'm not really taking this time to write. I even had this idea that if I'm gonna watch like the matches, the games for the World Cup, I could have with my laptop, and I was able to do that a couple of times. But also, I think it goes back to the thing that I'm just tired. So sometimes like I'm physically tired, but also like mentally, so it feels like I'm completely depleted, and like there's no ideas coming, there's nothing, like you just it feels weird. Basically, it feels like there's something that I should be doing, but I don't know what. Like I feel like there are ways for me to do better, but I don't really have like the strategy to kind of like make that happen. And I don't know, man. Like, I really think that I feel like that there's definitely a better way for me to do things, but like my attempts, they haven't really led to that. So I'm kind of like stuck, And I mean, talking about me being stuck, being kind of like in a slump, it's in itself kind of like it's helpful. Maybe it's the beginning of this healing journey, because I'm talking about how I've been struggling, but the past couple of days I've actually been able to kind of like make some progress. So that is, that's why I can. But yeah, but back on the topic, the should I conform? The answer is no, but it is tempting. Part of me feels like if I conformed, I would be happier. Not happier. I would be unhappy in some ways and happier in others. Basically, I talked about this before. Like, the world seems to be going to shit. So there's so many things that are happening, and so many things that yeah, like I don't know how to explain. We're all living in the same world, and part of me kind of like thinks that if I were to conform one way or another, like this changes, they would hurt less, like this these bad things happening, that they would affect like the situation, yeah, that would affect my situation naturally. Like, it's kind of hard for me to just, because this is very hypothetical, because I am not giving up on my morals or my principles, on my beliefs. So it's not like there's an actual chance for me to conform that way, but it's still, I'm kind of I don't know. It feels like I'm tired of suffering. Basically, not particularly groundbreaking, but I'm tired of looking around and just seeing, like the very worst that could be, and I don't really have, yeah, like I don't really have, there's nothing I can do, basically. Like, I'm one person, and I'm a person of no importance, no significance. So things are just getting worse, and I'm just witnessing them getting worse, and there's nothing that I could do. There's nothing that I can do, and that like sucks. So maybe that's pretty much why I said I'm tired of being myself, because it involves this powerlessness, this kind of like helplessness, hopelessness. Oh goodness, and I'm just like that is tiresome. That's not like the reason I'm tired, but this is something that makes it worse. It just kind of like it aggravates my situation, because I go from being somewhat normal, as really like living my life, not being affected by things, and then suddenly like this state of mind, like it just hits, and I'm yeah, like I'm how do I put this? I don't know, man. And suddenly like I'm like drowning in all this. It's kind of like like in a bouncy how do you call it? One of those bouncy places. It's kind of like like you're laying down and then you're sinking. So it's kind of like feels like everything around you is like swelling, and you're being kind of like engulfed by like the bouncy house. And that's kind of like what it's been feeling like lately. But I will say that, for example, today I woke up, I, put on some makeup, I got, my hair done, like, I'm getting better. I'm still kind of like, doing the things, but, like so yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe I'm already on my way to kind of like, to be better, but I don't really have, an explanation. I tried. I didn't really change, because I was not doing so well. So I kind of like I contacted my psychiatrist, and we scheduled an appointment for next week. So we're probably going to change some of my medication, and that is I don't know. We just bought medication. So hopefully it's going to be a change of doses. We're still gonna use it. But yeah, it's been kind of chaotic for me. I don't know. I've been having all this. I've been having a lot of dreams lately, like, and they've been kind of like fun dreams. I usually don't remember them for much longer after I wake up, but they're fun. So it's something to look forward to. When it comes to bed, when I go to bed, and also it kind of like it makes me less likely of just like wishing that like the end came upon me. So that is kind of like a positive. Lately, I'm just really attaching myself to positives these days. I am kind of very, I don't know. Some things they never change. It feels like, and it's interesting because sometimes it's good that things don't change. it's good to kind of like maintain the status quo, but in some other ways, so there are, you just have to try and balance, because there's so many ways in which like things are not working, so we have to do something about about things. And as I said, like we go back to like me feeling powerless, because there's nothing that I can do to improve things. There's nothing within my reach for me to kind of like work on. So I'm kind of just I'm stuck in the sameness. So in this way, I don't like like maintaining this status quo. I think I need change. I need to do better. I don't know, maybe I'm just expecting too much, because I know on the reasonable, I know that I don't have any power, but I feel like there's still an expectation in my head that like I do something that I kind of and there's nothing it's kind of frustrating, like this disconnect between my brain and the other part of my brain, because why am I still have these fantasies. I think that for the most part, like, fantasies have really subsided, which is great. It's one of those things that I wanted to change, and it seems to have changed, so that's pretty good. But there's also, like the fact that I'm, I don't know, it's kind of like, I feel sometimes like the things that I need to change, we're stuck here, and then the things that I don't want to change, like they keep changing, and then I'm just kind of like juggling so many things, and I don't really know what to prioritize, because for example, like writing is something that I love a lot, and it's always going to be something very meaningful to me. It's one of my anchors, but like there are other responsibilities that I have that maybe I should be focusing on them instead of the writing, but like that is kind of like the priority that I'm giving it. So, and like I don't want to change. That is the thing. I don't want to get to a point where I no longer right. I want to enjoy the moments that I'm having inspiration and motivation, and I want to explore them fully. I don't want to kind of pass like I'm not passive. It's just something that my mom has been telling me a lot lately, that I'm a very dedicated person, by what which basically means that I'm very, like everything, she said that everything I do with excellence, which is great. I love that compliment. But it is kind of true, but it's also kind of not. Because I think in a lot of ways I'm trying to kind of like do my best, and sometimes the best is good enough, sometimes it isn't, but this is not the point of today's video. But then there are some things that I find that I don't really care about, and like those I end up neglecting a lot. But thankfully in my life I've been able to move past. For example, college is a good example. Like before this semester, I haven't been this engaged, this kind of like happy with kind of like my with academia. The last time was like 2019, so like that was the year that I did well, and I dedicated myself, and I found fulfillment in my activities. So that was like an interesting that was an interesting year. And then since then, like, it's been mess on top of mess. I changed majors, and I mean 2024 first semester I did the plastic arts major for a little while. I did do my best there, but like I found out that I don't want to draw. That is not my thing. That's not the type of art that I excel in, or that I want to excel in, because like you can kind of like get yourself to improve like on anything and everything, but that's the thing, like, do I want to spend the time and effort necessary for me to kind of like work this particular thing, or do I just want to like, do I just, or should I kind of like move on to something that really means something to me, that because anything and everything you do in life is going to take time and effort. So if you're going to kind of like you have to do something. So like a person was like, yeah, I want to do something that I enjoy, something that means something to me, saying something and anything too much. But yeah, but I kind of I have kind of like lost you know, like this passion, this interest, maybe passion is a strong word, but like this interest in kind of like making, doing as well as I could, as well as I can, you know, in academia. So it's been kind of like an interesting revitalization, is that word in English? It's been like a renewal period for me, because I'm basically, I don't know, I'm finding myself, you know, in a certain way. I'm redefining my future. You know, I'm starting a new major. I want to conclude this one, so this is going to be the direction my life is going to take professionally, and I'm fine with that. You know, like I think that my delusions, you know, like I still have them. You know, every once in a while, like they come back, but for the most part, I've been pretty realistic about, you know, like my life in general. So things are going well. I don't know, like I think well is good, because this is like the first semester, so you know things, they say that like, you know, in the third semester, if you pass, like, you know, you'll make it through the end. So I'm still at the beginning, and you know, like the second semester is right around the corner, and I'm not afraid, you know. I think I'm kind of like apprehensive, because I feel like the more you learn, like I think you have to really up, you know, your level of quality of what you're producing. And part of me is like, can I do that? Can I really live up to those expectations? And I would like to say yes, but there is a huge chance that the answer is no. So there's that. But I'm not letting that kind of like dictate how I live my life. You know, I'm going through kind of like, I'm embracing whatever is coming, and I am going to continue doing my best. And so far, like my best has been enough. But like that's the thing, like what if, you know, like next semester I do my best and that is not enough? But yeah, but like I'm gonna cross that bridge once I get there. Or, you know, you could say I'm going to burn that bridge once I get there. At any rate, like I don't have to worry about it right now. I just have to worry about finishing the semester, because I'm already talking about the second semester when the first one isn't even over, and there's still like, you know, some stuff. I have an exam, I have a test today, I have a test tomorrow, I have an assignment, and then, you know, there's some stuff for like the beginning of July, and I think then it's you know, like a semester ends. But yeah, so basically life has been okay. I mean, I would say life has been good, you know, but I have been questioning myself in a lot of ways. As I said, do I wanna, am I tired of being myself? Because there's so many, I mean, anyone is going to have challenges in life, but I'm kind of like maybe tired of the challenges that I face. So for example, mental illness, that is one. It's like, why do I have to struggle so much with this? You know, so many people, they have other struggles, but they don't have this particular struggle, and I'm kind of like tired of it. You know, it feels like I have a good thing going, and then, you know, my head comes along to just, you know, mess things up, and I don't really have. You know, I try to, you know, predict things, and I try to be observant about things, so we can kind of like handle you know, things as best as we can, as soon as we possibly can. But you know, like there's still a waiting period. You know, like it's not, there's still like a loss. You know, like I lose, you know, like time. I lose energy. I lose money sometimes because of the situations, and I'm kind of done. You know, it's not that I'm done, but you know, like I'm kind of like, I'm over it basically. I want to get to a point where like this is no longer an issue, and it's this dormant thing, because you know, you start off having you know, things kind of like working out great, and then, you know, slowly but surely you know, things start to get worse, and there's nothing for me to do. You know, I mean, like I you know, like I contact the doctor, we change medications, I have therapy, and you know, like I have therapy today, by the way. So, you know, 4 p.m. I'm gonna go there, and I don't even know what I'm gonna say, because also kind of crazy, because like this was like already been 2 weeks since I yeah, since my last session, and it just passed by really quickly. Not that that is a bad thing. Is it? I try to remember now, like, because maybe it didn't, not that much time has passed, but I'm kind of you know, like I'm tired, period. But like I start extrapolating. So it starts with like I'm tired, and suddenly you're tired of this, you're tired of that, you're tired of your life, you're tired of like the circumstances you're attached to. You wish like things were different. You wish things you had more. You wish you had less. Thinking less in terms of for example, I wish I had less mental health issues. Uh, but ultimately, like, we're all just doing the best that we can. Not everybody, but I think that like that is also ultimately because we all have to live. That is the issue, because then my brain's like, do it though, and that's kind of like leads to some very serious situations. And I was doing so well without them, without those thoughts, and now they're here. But yeah, so you're tired, and it feels like that there's also something that's been happening. I've been feeling tired, and there's no amount of rest that seems to work. Oh yeah, the thing of like me being very tired, I might be anemic. Like my nutritionist, she kind of like prescribed me some. She prescribed me like B12, and then I have to talk to my general physician. My primary care physician, I think is the term, my PCP, and she's going to give me like a shot of, I think there's also like issues with iron, but it's mostly B12. So this might be why I'm tired, like this, but so like there is a solution, I'm going to take, the pills and the shots, and I'm going to be healthier. So, but yeah, but until then, as I said, like this is also something that is kind of new. I think it might have to do with like me getting older, but I think you hear people talking about this, before, how sometimes like they're tired and there's no amount of rest that can kind of like make them feel rested, and that is kind of like where I am at. I'm at this point where I'm kind of like I rest and I'm still tired. Maybe I'm not resting right. I think physically I'm resting right, but like mentally, maybe I'm not giving myself enough time, to kind of like get back together. Maybe like I get a little bit better, and then I try to get back in my usual pace, and then that kind of like gets in the way. But yeah, so that's been kind of my life. So I'm tired of being. I'm not tired of being myself. I'm tired of being. Like that's kind of like where I am at. But I'm fine with myself. I'm fine with my life. I'm happy about my prospects. So there is that basically, like, even if I can see it right now, there is a solution, and I will find it. So I have that kind of I'm confident in that, at least. And regarding like, do I want to conform? The answer is no, I don't want to conform, because I mean, I kind of like, part of me, I think when I'm tired, I kind of like am more likely to want to conform, but that is not going to happen. I'm not going to sacrifice like my morals and my principles just because I'm tired. Like, I'm going to keep being strong, because like this is usually like the time where you're tested by these things, and that is kind of where I am at right now. I'm kind of like, I'm being tested, and I'm going to overcome this. I shall overcome. But yeah, that's it for today. So anyways, bye.